The original members of the most controversial heavy rock band of the late 80s included Axl Rose and Izzy Stradlin. Vocalist Rose, who had first sung at the age of 5 in a church choir, met guitarist Stradlin in Los Angeles in 1984. He changed his name to Rose at the age of 17 when he discovered who his real father was, the Axl prefix coming from a band with whom he had rehearsed in Indiana. With Tracy Guns and Rob Gardner, drums, they formed a rock band called, in turn, Rose, Hollywood Rose and LA Guns. Soon afterwards, Guns and Gardner left, to be replaced by two members of local band Road Crew, drummer Steven Adler and guitarist Slash, the son of a clothes designer and an album cover artist. With bass player Duff McKagan, the band was renamed Guns N' Roses. Despite the disastrous US Hell Tour 85, record companies were becoming increasingly interested in Guns N' Roses, and in 1986, the band signed to Geffen Records. At the end of the year, the 4-track Like a Suicide was released on the independent UZI Suicide label. During 1987, they toured extensively, though the band's appetite for self-destruction became readily apparent when Fred Coury of Cinderella was recruited to replace Adler temporarily, after the latter had broken his hand in a brawl. February 1988 also saw the first internal rift when Rose was kicked out, then reinstated, within 3 days. Their debut, Appetite for Destruction, produced by Mike Klink, went on to sell over 20 million copies worldwide and reached number 1 in the USA a year after its release date. The singles Sweet Child O' Mine, Welcome to the Jungle and Paradise City were also major transatlantic hits, with Sweet Child O' Mine topping the US charts. Welcome to the Jungle was also used on the soundtrack of the Clint Eastwood movie Deadpool. The band's regular live shows in the USA and Europe brought frequent controversy, notably when 2 fans died during crowd disturbances at the Monsters of Rock show at the Dunnington Festival in 1988. In 1989, the 8-track album G&R Lies was issued, becoming a big hit on both sides of the Atlantic. The first 4 tracks were lifted from the band's debut EP, while the remaining 4 were acoustic recordings. The melodic and Wistful Patience reached the US Top 5 and UK Top 10. However, Rose's lyrics for One in a Million were widely criticized for their homophobic sentiments, although the singer later argued that these did not represent his personal point of view. Although Guns N' Roses appeared at the Farm Aid 4 charity concert, their career was littered with incidents involving drugs, drunkenness and public disturbance offenses in 1989-90. At times their excesses made the band seem like a caricature of a 60s supergroup, with headlines screaming of Stradlin urinating in public on an aeroplane, Slash and McKagan swearing live on television while collecting trophies at the American Music Awards, and Rose's on-off relationship with Everly. In September 1990, Adler was replaced by Matt Sorum from The Cult. Apparently more restrained in their private life, Guns N' Roses added Dizzy Reed for a 1991 World Tour, where their exciting and unpredictable performances brought favorable comparisons with the heyday of the Rolling Stones. In September the band released the highly publicized pair of albums, Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2, preceded by the hit single You Could Be Mine. Further transatlantic hit singles included Don't Cry, the epic ballad November Rain, and a cover version of Wings Live and Let Die. The Illusion Brace immediately sat astride the top 2 album positions on the Billboard chart, the first occasion on which they had been thus dominated since Jim Croce in 1974. The feat was repeated in the UK, but the band's more expansive sound, incorporating elements of classical music and the blues, drew a mixed reaction from critics and fans. Izzy Stradlin found the pressure too much and left late in 1991, going on to form the Juju Hounds. He was replaced by Gilby Clarke. Meanwhile, Slash's growing reputation brought guest appearances on recordings by Dylan and Michael Jackson. He also contributed to tribute albums to Muddy Waters and Les Paul, and subsequently established his own spin-off band, Slash's Snake Pit. Guns N' Roses' appearance at the 1992 Freddie Mercury AIDS benefit concert at Wembley Stadium in London, England, prompted the UK release of their live version of Bob Dylan's Knockin' on Heaven's Door. While Dylan fans groaned with disbelief, the band's vast following was happy to see its heroes reach number 2 on the singles chart. While both of their previous albums remained on the US chart, having sold more than 4 million copies each, it was not until the end of 1993 that any new material emerged. When it arrived, it came in the form of the Spaghetti Incident, a much-vaunted collection of cover versions with a punk foundation. A perfunctory affair, it was mainly notable for lining the pockets of several long-forgotten musicians, and for including a song written by mass murderer Charles Manson. The project enjoyed more success in the UK, spawning 2 top 10 singles with Ain't It Fun, originally by the Dead Boys, and Since I Don't Have You, originally by the Skyliners. The main inspiration behind the project, Duff McKagan, had his debut solo album released at the same time. However, reports of an unhappy camp continued to filter through in 1994, leading to the dismissal of Gilby Clarke towards the end of the year, following his own, highly public, outbursts about Rose. His replacement was Paul Tobias aka Paul Huge, a former flatmate of Rose from his Indiana days. His first recording with the band was a cover version of the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil for the soundtrack to Interview with the Vampire. The single reached the top 10 in the UK, but did not dent the US top 50. However, Tobias stayed only briefly with the band, as did his replacement, Zakk Wylde, who failed to record a single note with the band before falling out irreconcilably with Rose. In May 1995, Izzy Stradlin was reinstated as second guitarist, but by the end of the year Rose and Slash were again at loggerheads and no new album was imminent. Sorum and McKagan, meanwhile, teamed up with guitarist Steve Jones for the spin-off band The Neurotic Outsiders. Slash confirmed Rose's departure in November 1996, although this situation was reversed in February 1997 when Rose allegedly purchased the rights to the Guns N' Roses name. Later in the year, this was seemingly confirmed by the recruitment of Robin Fink, formerly of Nine Inch Nails, to replace Slash. The departure of Sorum and McKagan over the next 2 years left Rose as the sole original member of the band. Backed by a returning Tobias, the loyal Dizzy Reed, Fink, Tommy Stinson and Josh Freese, he embarked on more recording sessions for a projected album called Chinese Democracy. In November 1999, Rose surprised everyone by contributing the industrial metal track Oh My God to the soundtrack of End of Days. Further delays in recording the new album led to the departure of Fink and Freese, with avant-garde guitarist Buckethead and drummer Brian Mantia added to the lineup. With Fink back in tow, the band played a number of live sets during 2001. Richard Fortus then replaced Tobias as the band announced their first tour in 9 years during November 2002. Their popularity seemed undiminished as Madison Square Garden sold every ticket within a few minutes of putting them on sale. Sadly, the entire tour was scrapped after only 9 performances, with Axl Rose's non-appearance at several shows prompting the tour company to pull out. The saga of Chinese Democracy rolled on into the mid-00s, with release dates coming and going. This all proved too much for Buckethead, who left the band at the start of 2004. The music industry's biggest boondoggle finally bore fruit in 2008 when Axl unveiled a record that was well over a decade in the making. While it received many rave reviews, and the critical response was positive overall, the record underperformed its almost impossible expectations, debuting at number 3 when it came out in November.